Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to take a brief look at 3 pens from Moonman or Majohn. These pens, they're ones I've got in my collection, but I don't often use them, so I thought let's pull them out and take a closer look at them and see if that excites me a bit more so that I'll actually start using these more often. The pens we're going to look at, we've got the Moonman M8. This is really unusual. It's black. It's got this gorgeous silver though in it. The second one is the Moonman P135. Classic looking pen, although a bit of a clone of another pen I think. Then the final pen is the Moonman S5 eyedropper pen with a broad nib. That's the thing which makes this stand out from the other pens. So join me now down on the mat. Let's dig on in and take a look at these pens. Welcome down to the mat. Here we've got the 3 pens we're going to look at today. The Moonman M8, the Moonman S5, the Moonman P135, or if you prefer, the Majohn M8, the Majohn S5 and the Majohn P135. When I bought these pens though, it was called Moonman, and to be honest, I've got Moonman that ingrained in my head that I keep calling it Moonman anyway. This is not a detailed review of these pens. If you'd like to see me do a fountain pen focus on these, please drop a comment, let me know that you'd like to see more detail on them. What I thought I'd do here is just a quick overview of 3 Moonman pens that, to be honest, I don't use as often as I should. You know, they often sit there in the drawer, very rarely coming out. We'll start looking at the M8. This is actually quite a nice pen. It's quite different, isn't it? It's a black body, but then we've got this silver in there, and a lot of them, they look like squiggles. What this makes me think of is sitting outside, looking at the sky at night, and then seeing like the stars and the galaxies. I know not quite the same colour, but that's what it puts into my mind. And I've got to be honest, that was the reason I bought this pen. It's nice though. It's an unusual pen. Let's take the cap off. If we look at the nib on this, we've got a number 6 size nib, nice sized nib. It's all one colour. Fairly plain in terms of the decoration. We've got what I would describe as maybe mountains. Then we've got a crescent breather hole. We've got a logo, and down below that we've got Moonman. And then in a circle we've got an F. This is a fine nib. The pen itself is a cartridge converter. There we go, there's the converter in there. Metal fittings, not a pen that you would be able to eyedrop or anything like that. It's nice, it fits nice in my hand, quite enjoyable to write with. This is why I think I need to try and make myself use this pen more often, because, you know, it's nice. The only thing letting it down, it's a fine nib. To be honest, that's the same with virtually every Moonman nib. They only come with that fine point. They are nice nibs, I'm not saying they're not. Just not a lot of choice in nib variation. Although it's a number 6 nib, so I should be able to change that quite easily. The second pen we're going to look at, this is the S5. Different beast really, isn't it? For a start, we've got a lot of transparency to it. You can see right the way through it. It's a different shape, a little bit like a fish. You know, you've got the mouth at this end, you've got out to the body, then come in, and then you've got that little tail at the bottom. I think that will stand, not very well though. Maybe that's because of how I'm balancing it. Yeah, there we go, it'll stand on that end. The other end is also flat. It'll stand on there. If we look around the bottom of the cap, you know, we've got Moonman there, then there's also this little diamond. I think that may act as a roll stop. Let me try and do that so it's on camera. I'll move them other pens out of the way. They're distracting anyway. So, yeah, acts as a little bit of a roll stop. Again, it's a nice looking pen. I love this transparent nature. Let's take off the cap. Here we've got, again, it's that silver colour nib, but it does look smaller. Let me fetch in the M8. Let's compare them against each other. You know, you can see there the difference in the size of the nib. So not a nib that's easy to change. The other thing with this pen, you see the section? I like the section shape. That reminds me of the Leonardo Momento Zero pens with their nice gorgeous section. I like the sections on the older style Leonardo Momento Zeros. I don't like this colouring. It just looks odd. You know, when you compare it to the rest of the pen. The rest of the pen is transparent. Why do we need this? I don't know. It looks just ugly to me. Very personal choice there. If it was down to me, do you know what I'd like to see? I'd like this to be transparent as well, so we could actually then see the feed inside and see what's going on and see the ink filling up in this section. I think that would have looked really nice. This pen is an eyedropper. I'm not going to take the top off to show you. Eyedropper fill only. Takes an awful lot of ink there. And with it being transparent, I love to see the ink slosh around in here. So that's the Moonman S5. Last pen, here we've got the P135. Just look at this cap. Look at the carving on there. Got a nice little picture building up. What I'll have to do somehow is try and take a print of this, maybe cover it in ink and try rolling it on some paper or like a wax rubbing, something like that, just to see what the picture is. Got a lovely burgundy body. Then we've got this silver coloured end finial as well. I believe this is heavily inspired by, I think it's a Mont Blanc pen. I'm not 100% certain on that though, but I have seen people say it's inspired heavily by another pen. I think it's Le Petit Prince. The top here, we've got this piece of plastic meant to look like a pearl. Yeah, it's all right. Doesn't really grab me there. Cap screws off. We've got another small nib. This time it's silver coloured. Let me just fetch in the S5. Let's compare the nibs. So this nib, I think, is the same size as the one on the S5. Let me get this into the focal point of my camera. That might make it a bit easier to see. Of the two, I do prefer the one on the P135 purely because it's the silver colour rather than that gold. Doesn't really make a difference in how it writes, it's just down to the colour of the material. The pen does feel very short and thin to me, whereas the S5 has got a bit more heft to it. We'll see a better look of that when I'm writing. This is another one where it's a cartridge converter. Again, all metal fillings. I like here how the section material picks out the body material as well. Just adds that a little bit to it. So that's a quick look at the pens. Let's jump into the most important part there. Let's go in and see how they write. This is Oxford Optic paper. It's really nice fountain pen friendly paper. This is a B5 notepad. We'll start with the cheapest pen. We're going to go cheapest to most expensive. So we start off with the Moonman. So, just had an issue there. The pen wouldn't write. Now, I don't know if that's because I've had the cap on and off so much as I've been doing all the prelim part of this video. Not had this issue before though, but it's an issue I'm getting. So be aware there may be an issue if you're taking the cap on and off a lot. Let's try again, shall we? We've got a Moonman M8. And it's still writing, yay! Fine nib. Cost-wise, this was 24 Australian dollars. So a fairly, this is a hard thing to say, it's a fairly affordable pen. The ink is by Noodlers. And it's North African Violet. I don't use this ink very often. I've got a lot of other purple inks. Well, to be honest, I've got a lot of inks full stop. Nice colour there, and it does take me back to my youth. And my grandmother, she had an African violet plant with the purple flowers. And this does fetch that plant right into my mind every time I see it. Drying times, so we go immediate. Fairly dry looking. 10 seconds, only a tiny smudge there. Let's just go for 30 seconds anyway. And look at that, we've run out again. So 30 seconds. Yeah, near enough dry there at 30 seconds. I'm going to move the mic down to the page and hopefully write a whole sentence. Line variation, so no pressure. Adding some pressure. And again, it stopped writing. Let me just get this going again. All I'm doing to get it going again is I'm just giving it a couple of good shakes. So let's do some S's. Again, seeing that problem. So it looks like the slightest bit of pressure is what may be stopping it from writing. Let's look at flow. So I'm going to go really, really light. So we're getting a couple of skips there. And if I add a bit of pressure near the end, let's try this with a bit of pressure. Look at that. Very quickly it stopped writing. A couple of shakes and it's writing again. $24, that's all I paid for this. So I think I now know why I don't use this that often. The beauty of it is though, it's a number 6 nib. What I may do is I think I'll pull out that nib and feed once I've wrote out all this pen. Give it a good clean. And then I'll spend a while just slowly working on them to try and get it to work better. Now, what I do when I do this, I literally do one change at a time. I like to take it nice and slow, so I'll clean it out. If that doesn't work, I'll try flossing the nib. If that doesn't help, what I often do is take the nib off and then I score down the feed to see if I can improve ink flow that way. So it's just bit by bit trying different things until I get it fixed. Anyway, that was the Moonman M8. Let's see if we have any better luck with the second pen. So the second pen, this is the S5. So let's write with this one. Now this pen, it does feel a little bit shorter. It will post, but to be honest, it doesn't add that much extra length, but it does make it feel a little nicer, a little bit longer. And I think that's the beauty of this design. You can see there it posts, and that's where the top of the actual body is. So we've got here a Moonman S5. This isn't unusual for a Moonman. It came with a medium nib. It cost me 37 Aussie dollars. The ink by Diamine, and it's Yuletide. This was part of the 2021 ink event calendar. Nice colour. Again, it's an ink. I don't often use it enough. Same with a pen. I quite like it when I get it out and use it, but it just sits there in the cupboard most of the time. Drying times. There's a media. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, that's nice and dry. Let's move the mic, write a sentence. Love the colour of this ink. Line variation, so no pressure, with some pressure. And I'm going to do no pressure, none, and pressure. So we do see a little bit of a wider line, but how much of that is it? The fact I'm pressing harder, so we're getting more ink out. Flow. Do you know, that keeps it really nice. Quite enjoy writing with this. The one thing I will say, the nib, it feels a bit scratchy, and I think that came over when I had the mic closer to the paper. Hopefully you can hear that. So it was not that it was dragging on the paper, but there was definitely, I'm going to say it was actually a slightly unpleasant feel to how it was writing. What I'm going to do, when I've got a couple of hours to spare, I'll start working on this with micro mesh. I like to have a couple of hours because I don't want to overdo it. So what I try to do is spend about 5-10 minutes just working on the nib, testing it out, getting it somewhere where I like. Then I like to spend about half an hour just using the pen, see if I've solved the issue. If I have, that's all well and good. If not, I've got time then to carry on and iterate 2 or 3 times if I need to try and get the nib writing just how I want it. At $37, this is really good value for an eyedropper pen. And if you're looking at an eyedropper or to try out an eyedropper, this one might be worth thinking about. So that was the Moonman S5. Move up the page slightly so we can get the last pen on there. So the last pen is that P135. This pen does have feel heavy. So we've got here a Moonman. And say you could say Majohn. It was Moonman when I bought it. P135. Fine nib. This was 45 Australian dollars. So of the 3 pens, the most expensive. The ink is by Pilot. It's Iroshizuku. And it's Yama Budo. This is an ink sample I've had well over a year. Every time I see this ink on somebody else's video, I think, oh, that's a nice colour. So I popped it into this pen. So I thought, again, like with the S5, let's use an ink I don't use as often either. To be honest, all 3 inks are ones I don't use very often. I don't know why. I was expecting it to be a darker shade than it is. To me, it's a lot lighter than I was expecting. Now, that could be the fact I'm watching it on people's videos, so obviously the lighting is different, and the lighting, it does affect how it looks, but I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, just not the shade I expected. Drying times. There's immediate. Here's 10 seconds. Do you know, I'm not even going to bother with a 30-second test. So as a combo, that one, it dried really quickly. Going to move the mic to the page so you can hear the pen writing. Line variation, so no pressure. With pressure, not seeing much in the way of line variation there at all. Then no pressure, with pressure, no pressure, with pressure. Ever so slightly wider, but not enough to really worry about. Flow. Wow, that's so nice. Nice flow. The nib feels very nice to me. This is, of the 3 pens we've looked at today, I will not change or touch this nib in any way. It just seems to be right. It's got the right amount of feedback. It's got the smoothness. The whole pen, it just feels that it's just disappearing with one small caveat. It's too thin. Really is. If this had been maybe 3 or 4 millimeters wider, it would have been perfect. It's just too thin for me. And again, I think this is why I don't fetch out that often. When I'm holding it writing, I can feel my fingers pressing against each other, which is a shame because other than that, it's a beautiful, glorious pen to write with. So let's hopefully see if we can get all 3 of these inks and pens in. So that was me doing just a quick exploration of these 3 Moonman pens. So we've got the Moonman or Majohn M8, the Moonman or Majohn S5, and the Moonman or Majohn P135. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Have you got any of these Moonman pens? What are your thoughts on them? What do you use your pens for? Please drop a comment down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.